Welcome to this video and let's draw some heads. So let's start with this first one and move it here to the side. So I want to start with a side profile. So it's, yeah, like this. Move this one a bit up here and let's draw it here. And you can follow along. You can also pause the video or use the image to draw this step by step. So what I would encourage you to do is you can draw on paper, in Procreate, or as I do here in Photoshop. That doesn't really matter. This technique can be used on anything you like. So start with drawing a ball and draw a line into that ball. So a lot of times I start with drawing a ball or a circle. So we've drawn this vertical line through the middle. Now let's draw this horizontal line through the middle as well, like this. Now let's draw a line going here. So under this, the below the ball, under the ball. So now from this point, you draw a line here and a line here. And now we connect those lines here. And you can play around with the proportions of this. So you can also learn this for this basically the same steps you use to draw a realistic character, but then you're using more of an how would you say that? Different proportions, stick proportions. But here I'm focusing on these kinds of more pushed characters. So here, animation characters, however you like to call it. So drawing the eyes here. So by changing these positions of the eyes and stuff like this, you can get a lot of variations. And I will show that in a bit. So let's draw in the nose here. Let's draw in the mouth. And then we can start adding in details. So what I often do is take my eraser and then erase these lines a little bit. And I'm going to sketch on top. So I'm giving some eyelids like this here and some pupils. And let's draw in nose. So I'm basically drawing on top of these shapes, and I will do that a lot. And why I wanted to start with the side profile is that there you don't have to think too much about the perspective. It's still good to think about shapes in 3D, but yeah, it's a little bit less important. So here, these lines, and draw in the eyebrows, so like this. And no worry if you have some problem with some of the shapes. I will show some more versions. But what I would encourage you, especially when you're just starting out with drawing, try to copy my drawings and learn from the steps I'm doing, so that you starting to understand how I make those steps. So when we're adding the hair, there's some space between the skull and the hair. So it's going in the back. This is also going in the back. Then we can draw this here. So I want to have this point a little bit higher. And you can change, you can play around with different proportions and see what it looks, make the head longer or wider, or different hair, different eyes. You can get so much variations. So what I also do is I'm drawing through my shapes, like you can see here. So this matches up with this here. So when you don't do that, sometimes you get some mismatches. So always sketch rough and through your shapes. That really helps. So here, it's going through here. So here you can see, so here I drew this line, when you see it mismatch here. So we can make it better, like doing this here and here. So we made our first head. So use this image from the ebook to follow these steps. So now we can move over to the next one. Again, the same steps, but a little bit more simplifies it. So I'm even skipping some steps. And I do that because when I'm sketching, I don't want to make all those precise steps all the time, but I do think about them and I do draw them. So here I actually started with drawing in the jaw. So here, so see how I use these shapes here, and let's draw in the neck here, so like this, and let's draw a line in the middle, and let's draw a line here, and shape for the nose, shape for the mouth. Let's draw in here this ear. Let's draw in this other ear. Then we can draw these eyeballs here, and just keep it loose. We're going to we can change stuff as we go. So here we have the base, erasing these lines and going to draw on top of it. So there's not really a particular order. Sometimes I like to start with the eyes because you always want to get those eyes right. So here, so don't make them simple simple balls, but try to give some corners to them. Later I will go a bit more in depth about the eyes. So here, and let's draw in the nose. Here, the eyebrow. So and this is what I'm drawing here, is basically, you can see it as a mask on the eyes. So this will I think I actually move it, but no, I made a little mistake here and there. Yeah. So if you can use these images, because I took more of my time for them to make. And here, drawing the eyebrows on top. So this is basically a mask. And think of a superhero mask or something. And you can also feel it on your own face. Your skull protects your eyeballs. These parts sticking out, and this is sunken in. And that's basically protecting your eyeballs. So here, adding this hairline. Actually, I think in the original I made it a bit higher, so let's do that here. We can, don't worry to fix stuff. I fix stuff all the time when I'm drawing. So that's also, especially when you're drawing on paper, draw really light. Sketch lightly on the paper first, so you can easily erase the lines to change some stuff. I think it's really good to start learning on paper first, because you learn so much from the mistakes you make, because it's less forgiven than digital. And also the thing is, with digital, you can get really stuck in pressing Ctrl Z all the time. So watch out for that. So here we've done this. Now let's draw in these ears. This here. So it doesn't have to be perfect yet, but because we're going to, yeah, we're going to draw over it later again. So here we made the sketch. We can erase this. So now you can draw over the same layer, or we can add another layer. So let's take a different brush. Is this one? No, I don't want to use this one. So let's use an ink brush. You can also use just a regular round brush, or it doesn't really matter. Use what you like. So now we're going to ink the drawing. So sometimes are thick and some lines are thinner, etc. So here, making this line going like this, and let's add this pupil here, the iris, and using the eraser. So you can zoom in a little bit. I wouldn't advise to zoom in too much, because then you're going to focus too much on really small details. So here, this eyebrow, this here. So I filled that with this color. So you're seeing I'm not doing all these lines. I'm just picking the lines I want to show, because this is a young character. With an older character, you would see, you would actually see more of those lines. Got this here, filling this. What I always like is that these things are not really perfect. That gives it some kind of natural look, and doesn't make us look like robots. Here's this thing here. It's a little bit different line art than I used in preview one. In preview one, I just used the regular round brush. Here I wanted to use this more rough brush. Also, to show a bit, you can use any tool you like to finish it. The drawing is the same. And also the technique is the same. It doesn't matter if you're using Procreate, Sketchbook, or drawing on paper with pencil or fine liner. The technique is the same. The tool is less important than a lot of people seem to think. So here, drawing in his mouth. So notice these slight little corners I'm making. So it's not that I simply make a perfect curve. I always try to give some kind of shape language in it. And also a topic I'm going to talk about. So I wanted to start with these front views, because I think those are most easy to pick up first. And also, when you're trying that out and it doesn't look like you want it to look, don't worry too much about it. Just move on to the next one, or try again. Try to be lighthearted with it. Don't judge yourself too hard. It takes a lot of time to learn, At least it took me a lot of time to learn how to draw. So take your time, enjoy it. And here. And also trust that practicing these kinds of drawings will help you. So it also helped me, and I know a lot of people who also couldn't draw at all first, but just by practicing and not giving up really improved their drawing. So here these ears. So it's also really good to use to look at photos for reference. Maybe try to draw yourself following these steps. Also, don't worry if the drawing isn't going to look too much like yourself. It's you can keep practicing that, but move on. Drawing is all about practice and learning from the stuff you're doing. Sometimes I also draw some notes besides my drawing from things I could improve. So now we've drawn this head. You can turn off the sketch or not. Yeah, let's leave it now on and do it later. So how I color these drawings is by the selection tool. Then making selections like this here. Come down here. So I'm pressing Alt, so you can use this here. So you can also use the selection tool in Procreate or any other program to color block the first shapes, or you can use a hard brush. So here, and especially when you're starting out, I wouldn't focus too much on coloring. I would really focus a lot on learning how to on learning how to draw. Sorry for that. So here this. So for example, here I'm using the brush like this. So here, going up here, and here. So I actually like that some parts of these brushes stick out of these lines. That it gives it these happy accidents. That makes it gives it some charm. So here, got this here. So you could follow these same steps also to make your own characters. I would advise you to maybe practice this first with this character, and then later move on to maybe then try out with your own character. Later, I will also show how to draw side profile and a 3/4. But I think it's actually really good to start practicing with these front views, because you can really focus on the design and the shapes. Don't have to think too much about complex shapes and stuff. So here, let's make these lips dark red, brownish red. This one a little bit lighter. The light is coming from top corner, so we can make this. So here I didn't use the line, but here I'm using the shadow. Make this a bit darker here. You can also, sometimes what I do in Photoshop, select this layer and press this button. And you also have to Procreate the alpha lock option. I think if you look at the options for the layers, so like this here. And let's see. So here I'm using some more harder shadows to do this. Here in the preview I used some soft brush, and I will show that later also. If you've seen it, if you haven't seen it already in one of my previous videos. So here, just eyes. Brush a little bit smaller because I think it's a little bit too much. So here. So the cool thing about eyes is that we have our lens on top. Because of that, when the light is coming from the top right corner, there's light coming here, like this here, because our lenses are transparent, so it lets light through. So that's why the bottom side here. But you do have that part there. So we could also shade it more, or like what I did here, giving those cheeks a red blush. But let's move on to the next one. So here, this one, move this on here, and let's do it again, but then with this character. So let's take a sketch brush. Yeah, like this. So what you can also create your own brushes. I also have these. You can also get my brushes here. You can also get just take a regular round brush and use transfer, and then you also have a sketch brush, and that actually works also fine. No, let me know if I'll show how to do that here, or how to draw with that here. So if you want to check more about my brushes, yeah, I have a separate video about it here, but I wanted to share that a little bit, because a lot of things you can just, yeah, it's totally fine to use basic brushes to draw that, as I'm showing here. So let's draw in this jaw. Like this here. So here, let's go. Like this here, and let's draw this line through. Then draw this neck. Like this. And we can start erasing these here. And let's draw a line here to the middle. See how I let it curve over the head? So the head isn't perfectly straight. Try to think how these shapes are curving around the head. And you will see that more when I'm going to draw the 3/4, but yeah, also wanted to give some, yeah, explain that part a little bit. So here, draw the head. And later I will go more into making those 3D shapes. First, I want you to get comfortable with this front view. So we're focusing on those things first. Later I will also tell a bit more about drawing eyes and stuff like that. More first here. So here. Make them a little bit bigger. So sometimes I'm not sure about proportions. So with realistic, you can figure out the exact size of the eyes. But with drawing these cartoon figures, it's more depending on the style or what kind of expression you want, etc. Drawing this mouth here. I think this chin is maybe a little bit too long for what I wanted to do here. And let's draw in these eyebrows like this here. And let's erase it a little bit and draw on top of this. And we can always go back and change stuff again, right? So let's draw in that hair. So first maybe start with drawing this, this shape. Like this here, so shape here. So really think in big shapes first. So then shape here, because we want to have that flow in that design. So here, plugs here, break the shape down in this here. This goes over the head. Here's a slight S curve. Talk about it more later. And here's a shape. The shape is overlapping the head. Then we have the shape going here. And then another line here. And a line here. And now let's draw in the nose. So, like this here. So inside this shape. You can also sketch in this line like this here. And now let's draw in these eyes. So here, for some reason, I have the feeling should have put the mouth and nose a bit lower, so we can move that here. So that's the good thing about drawing on about drawing on digital. You can simply select stuff and change it, but at the same time, that makes also that you can keep tweaking stuff. And on paper you can't, so you need to continue, and then you learn a lot from that, and then you can do it better the next time, or you can erase it and then draw it again. So here, so even when you don't have access to a fancy drawing screen, you can still learn how to draw. Think of those classic animation movies that are made in 2D. Those people were the best animation drawers, and they all learned it on paper, and using the same techniques as I'm using here, but then with different tools. In the end, it's just a tool, and it's not. It can help. It can make things easier, but it's not the main foundation of drawing. So here, like this. Here. So take your time to make these drawings. Time is also not that important when you're starting out. A bit bigger. So now we have this, we can erase the drawing. So when you're drawing in your sketchbook, erase the lines a little bit, and then go draw on top of it with a sharpened pencil, or use an what you call it, a fine liner thing. So here we're going to draw top of this. Basically, it's like inking. So I don't want to add wrinkles or stuff, only the essential lines to keep this character young. here, this mouth, here, the shape. So I also think, for example, the flesh is soft, and of course you have the bones and other parts that are hard. So some things flex more than others. That's not going too much into expressions, but that's really important for expressions. That how the flesh moves. For example, the teeth doesn't. So here these eyelashes a bit thick. Let's make this a bit thick here. Drawing this. Oh, like this here. And drawing this line here. Usually I try to smooth out these lines a little bit more. So in Photoshop, what you could do is smoothing. Here's 13%. You can also put it higher to get perfectly round lines. So you can see that smoothing here, or you can put it on smoothing here. So if you want to have super clean lines, you could do that there. Here. And just keep adding. Here's this S line. So you can see I'm still changing some stuff from the sketch. So here, drawing this. Here, go down here. And this line here. Then go down here. So let's go a little bit quicker. Usually I take a little bit more time for this, but I don't think it's interesting to see everything real time. Here, breaking these shapes down, drawing this plug there, a shape like this here. So I also try to think a little bit in small, big shapes. Don't try to be repetitive with the shapes you're using. So here, and we can draw this eye. Make this brush bigger. This here. Then here. Fill this. Like it there. And close this off. And here. So you can see it's not perfectly symmetrical. Maybe I could try to make it a little bit more symmetrical, but yeah. So here, this neck. Try to think how this clothing is going around the neck, even when we're seeing it from the front. You can also erase it a bit to make it shape here. Give it that hint that it's going around the neck. This texture has some depth. So here now we drew this character. And in the next video, I'll show how to paint something like that here. But for now, I wanted to show how to use a bit more, draw a bit more of a pushed face. Let's go to this. Yeah. This a little bit here. So now we can start playing around a bit with different shapes. So, but if we draw the head like this here, and you can also use different shapes. And later I will also show that. But here you can see how this head, it still has that main shape, but then yeah, it's a little bit different. It's just needs to be a bit wider. Not sitting perfectly in the front of it, so you always get some distortions. So when you're drawing, make sure you're really in front of the paper. Sometimes I also mirror it to see if it's if something is working. So here we have this head. This here, maybe make this a little bit longer. You can see how I'm. I think this was fine. Here, let's draw in these ears like this here. So this stage doesn't have to be perfect. It's just the sketch stage. So I'm going to draw on top of it. So draw the nose. This here. So see how everything is pushed, and a lot of contrast. This mouth is really high, really big chin, this big grin. So, and in these tutorials, I will show more of really pushed characters, but also some more neutral ones. These really pushed characters work often good for villains, for comic relief. Try to look at your favorite animation movies and try to see which characters are most pushed and which aren't, etc. So again, note how I start drawing those basic shapes first, but try to think in individual shapes, but still keep it all connected. So once I have this, I can start, yeah, I can start sketching on it. And that's where the most of the personality and life gets into the drawing. With inking, it's always the challenge to maintain that energy and life in your drawing. So here, this big chin, and this nose. So try to yeah, follow this drawing and or use that image to get as close as possible. And after that, you can try to create your own villain, something like this. And it's really good to play around with front views for your design, because you can focus, as you can see here, you can focus so much on the design. Here is, because of his laugh, these mouth corners are really pushed up, like this here. And I thought it was funny to have these teeth like this here, giving that weird look. And here, small bit there, maybe some hairs. So notice how I don't try to use the same size between those lines. I try to keep it all a bit, yeah, chaos. Makes it more organized, and it also gives this character a more sloppy look that I think fits with his crazy expression. That gives the character also some attitude. This one is really pushed. So I would really encourage you to, yeah, of course, draw this one first, and then maybe after that, try to create your own. Yeah, try to create your own version of it. Try out with different heads. And I will show later some more versions of it. So here, this here. So now we have this drawing. Okay, turn it off, and let's now quickly ink it. So maybe it's also fun to talk about. Sometimes when you do a quick ink, you also get really nice, interesting lines, and also some more smoother lines. So try to draw from your shoulder and not too much from your wrist. And I think that's also something I could do more. So try to move your whole arm when making these lines. So here, try to get some nice corners. This here, try to find some nice lines. Don't make those corners too perfect round, but give them some nice angles. Try to think in some interesting angles. Really play around with that. So here. So what is working with this brush is because the brush is not perfect round. So if I make the brush bigger, you can see it. It looks like a country or something. It's a long shape, and that gives these variations. In here's thick, and here it's line thin, etc. Here's thick, and then here's line. And you can see it also moves with the angle of my pen, like a real pencil. And those are settings you can add in Photoshop. So here. So sometimes it's also just fun to be really quick with the inking. I think you get more alive into your drawings. It starts to get look more sloppy, but at the same time you also get some really interesting lines. So try it out. Try to draw really secure and slow and steady, and also try to make a drawing where you're drawing really fast or where you're inking really fast. So I also wanted to show one other thing here. So for inking this character, for example, or coloring, so let's quickly color it here. To be too precise now because that's not something I wanted to show, but I wanted to show how to shade this character, how to think about shading. Although it's not about this tutorial, is not about shading. Let's show a bit. So here I took this warmer, a bit darker color, and the light is coming from the top right, in front of in front of him. So let's make this dark. So this highlight here is a bit lighter, but here these eyes are sunk in, so this is dark. So here, and I will show that later, really think about it 3D shape. Or I said the light is coming from here, the light is coming, of course, from here. That's because there's shadow here. So forget what I said about that. It's here. So here. So this side is also darker because the light is coming from there. So also look at your own face in the mirror. If you have use a flashlight or something to see that how it works out here. So or shadow here. Or look on old paintings, old Rembrandt paintings or something. You also see those things here. Maybe some light here, and etc. So I will come back on that part about lighting and shadowing a little bit in the next videos. But here in this one, I wanted to show about front view. So practice drawing these kinds of heads and also try to make your own version. So thanks and see you in the next video. Hey everybody, welcome to this video lesson about how to draw the side profile of a head. So let's start with this one. And so in the previous video, I showed how to draw the front of that. And that one was most easy because of you don't have to consider the perspective. But basically the same is with the side profile, but now we get more, like it said, it's a profile. So the nose sticks out, the lips, and it makes it a little bit harder. At least that's my opinion. That can always be different person. So I start with this ball, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And then we're going to draw a line, a vertical line going down like this here. So now we're going to add a line slightly below the middle. And we're going to add a line here. And I think that you might have guessed it. That is for the nose. So now we're going to add a line here. And we're going to take the same height of this. Around somewhere here is going to be the chin. So now we're going to add the lips. And you could measure this all out perfectly because especially when you're doing realistic art, that could be useful. But most of the time I'm doing these stylized characters, so I like to experiment a little bit what feels right. So now we've drawn in here the jaw that is a bit farther than the middle. And you can see how big the back of our head is. So now I'm going to draw the ear. So let's do this. And you can see it's in this quarter of this ball. And you can see it's, it's not sticking out of the skull. So once we have this, we're going to add the neck. Just draw a nice line curving from the back of the head like this. And let's add this chin. So drawing a line here and then a line like this. So basically a line like this here. So it's this, some kind of tube basically. So now we have drawn this. And on top of that, we can start drawing in the eyebrow. And I always, for the style I'm drawing in, I'm always drawing these really big eyes. So of course, it's not really realistically, but I'm not aiming for that. But you could use these steps also for realistic arts. You could use these steps, maybe take a photo or something, and then try to follow these steps and try to mimic the proportions from the photo. You do learn a lot from that. So, and that's also, I get a lot of questions, what kind of reference you use or how do you practice? So a lot of times I use photos and I try to simplify those photos to something I like. And I like to keep everything a lot simple. So that's why I also like to draw in this animation style. On that hair is going back behind the ear. Maybe you can add some hair here and draw some nice curving line here. See how I'm drawing through these shapes. So this hair is going back, but I draw through that nose. So this aligns up. So don't do this. If this is the nose and you're drawing the hair behind, don't do this. Skip this and draw here. Because now it doesn't match up at this point. So that's why I always like to draw through those shapes. So once you have this, you can start finishing the drawing. What I often do is I erase the sketch and I'm going to draw on top of it. You can see I'm just using a regular brush to do this. You can also do this on paper or any software you like. So I don't think, especially when you're practicing, it's not that important what kind of software you or pencil and paper you use. So here, I want to show how to draw this character. So here in this one, I'm going to show a little bit less of technical approach to this. And this is actually the approach I often use when I'm drawing heads. But I would recommend to practice the one I showed before, because even when you don't always draw all those steps, you do think of it. It needs to get in your mind so you're able to do it automatically. So like a lot of things with practicing, for example, if you're doing a sport, you're doing training over and over until it becomes second nature, right? So here with this one, I'm drawing there this jaw a little bit further, and also it's not going down that much, so you get more of this stylized look. So here, going down here, so now we have this this jawline. So here you can see this part sticking out, and that is what I often use when drawing characters from the side. So here, drawing the ear, and then the neck, like this. And once we have this, erasing the lines, and we can start drawing in the nose. And a lot of times I do this on feeling, but that's also something you need to develop. So first I practice this by copying or studying, I think is a better approach, studying other artists in real life. And at one point you start to develop your own style, but that takes time. So I would recommend, at first I would recommend do what you think is best, but I also would recommend to practice my drawings or some other artists you like and try to understand those steps. So here drawing this eye, and you can see here, this is almost a triangle, this eye here. So try to see these three lines. There's a line going like this, a line going inwards here, and this line here. So later I'll show how to use. So now let's draw in the hair. So I actually think to have this a little bit lower, maybe this part also a little bit lower. I don't know. No, I think it's fine. I was hesitating a little bit about the back of the head. Maybe make this a little bit bigger. So you can see, you can still tweak stuff in this stage. It's a nice part. So here, let's draw first maybe the imaginary hairline. So something like this. Doesn't have to be perfect, but then going to draw in this big hair like this, these big shapes. Later I'm going to think more in 3D fashion, but now I'm just going to draw in the basic shapes and the design to get this cool hairstyle. And also try to use some reference for these kinds of things. Maybe practice this one first, and after that maybe you go to a fashion site or and then try to find some different haircuts and practice those. Try to break them down in really basic shapes. So now I've drawn this, and let's erase it a little bit, and going to draw on top of it. Maybe move this one. Let's move this one down here. It's up here. It's bigger. So what I also sometimes do, I mirror the drawing to see how it looks. Sometimes you see some weird stuff and then you can fix it. You can also do this with when you're drawing on paper with holding a mirror next to your drawing. Then you can check if you like it or not. So now let's draw in this nose, adding some more, deciding what kind of nose you want to make. This, maybe let's tweak something, because in this stage you often see I need some more space here, drawing this right here, drawing this lip, and we want to make this cute corner of the mouth, and this lip is cool if that's sticking out a little bit. Then here this chin, let's make this chin short. I think that adds to the cuteness of this character. And see that I'm not drawing the whole jawline through, I let it stop there. So you get that overlapping line that helps a little bit with creating a sense of depth. So here, let's draw in these eyelashes. So this eye is not completely open, something like this. Then this here, and draw in this eye. So basically, if we really would look like the eye, you have the iris, and then you would have the pupil like this. So the pupil is basically a hole that is letting light through. And then here you have these things that with your image. But with cartoon art, I often draw these pupils on top of it, just to simplify it. So here, drawing the eyebrow of, the eyebrow, making this thick. Like this here. And this line here. And then drawing some lines here. Some line here. And then some line here. Then here. Some shape sticking out here. And then some shape here. Here. So usually, because I already did design, it's a little bit easier. Usually I would do, try out different things, like maybe make this longer, make this shorter. I don't want to have it the same size, so maybe I make this one thicker, like this, so you get that overlap there. Maybe make this thicker, like this, and it's still even a little bit different than the actual one. So always try to, if you have the skull, there's always some space between the skull and the hair. So that's always important. So once we have this, what we could do to start inking it, erase this drawing a little bit. And let's take this, let's get this brush, the right brush. So you don't necessarily have to do this, but since I've made all these brushes, I like to experiment a little bit with them. So here, going to ink this drawing. Yeah, let's just do it on the same layer. You can also add a new layer, but sometimes I like to, just the simplicity of working on one layer like this. So here, we zoom in a little bit. I don't like to zoom in too much because then you're going to focus too much on the details. And that's one of the advantages I have with having this big Wacom screen I'm drawing on. When you have a smaller one, then that's a little bit more difficult because then you need to zoom in more to have enough space to draw on. But that's fine. It's not a big problem. So here, drawing in these lips, so making this line thicker like this here. Then we have this line here, going down here, so like this, and then we can make this going here, and a line here, then a line here, so here. So try, and I'm always forgetting that, try to draw a little bit from your shoulder and not too much from your wrist. But I would, to get the most perfect lines, I would try to say, try different stuff out, try different brushes out, try to learn how to make your own brushes if you're working in Photoshop or Procreate. Or when you're drawing on paper, try different markers, pencils and stuff. Try to figure out what you like the best. So I don't really believe in the perfect pencil for everyone. And also drawing on paper and with pencil, I also don't like, especially with my sketchbook. My sketchbook is a little bit for experimentation. I don't try to get too expensive sketchbooks and pencils because I don't want to feel like I'm wasting expensive stuff. So it makes you, if you have that feeling, that makes you really hesitant to make mistakes, and you actually learn a lot when you're making mistakes because that means you're taking risk. So now we've did this, we can zoom out and we can start coloring. Taking the skin color, and I like to use this rough brush because I actually like it, that it's not perfect. I think that makes a drawing charming, especially with digital art. When you're using too smooth stuff, everything can look a little bit stiff. So I like these little mistakes always. So here, adding this here, taking this darker color, like this here. And this here. This shape. And then here. This here. Here. When the brush is a little bit too rough, make the brush smaller or use a different brush. I think maybe it's a little bit too rough what I'm doing, so but I don't want to make this video too long. Let's do this here. Here, let's fill this. This darker, like this here. And then we have this here. This eyebrow darker. Yes, and I'm working on these separate layers, and then I can also shade it a little bit easier after this. So here it is. I super big eraser, make it smaller. Let's add some colors to those lips. Like this here. And let's add some this a little bit darker. Not just gray, but give it some warmth, these shadows, or some coolness. It's also nice. So here, adding some shadow. This here. You could maybe add some here. Let's add some freckles. We could get a soft brush, paintbrush. It is a little bit reddish. Soft, like this here. It is a little bit too much. Maybe a little bit on the nose, like this. Maybe on the chin, maybe here. So a little bit. It's too much, maybe make it darker. Yeah, like this. This could work. And let's go now to the hair. Let's get that rough ink brush. And let's go to the layer back. So I press this button in Photoshop, and you can also do something similar in Procreate or any other program. So you can draw within these shapes. I think it's called Alpha Lock in Procreate. So here, drawing in shapes here, and that's the thing with using different software. These techniques, even when you're drawing on paper, it's it's not that the app does everything for you, right? It's you still have to. These are a lot of times the same techniques classical artists used. So now we've done this, and we can move on to the next one. Put this in a folder. Move to this kit. So this is a little bit of a different style. Let's see, where can I move it? Let's move it here. Let's get this sketch brush, figure drawing brush. Let's take this sketch brush. Get this purple color. So I like to sometimes sketch in different colors, because then you can use, for example, for the sketch, you can use purple, and for the final sketch, you can use black or blue, and then you can separate the lines more easy. So here, drawing this line here, and at one point try to do this on feeling these kinds of things, so that you're not thinking too much about it. And that's really funny, because first you really try to think about, oh, that needs to be 1/3, etc. But at one time you need to start relying on your guts and take a leap of faith. And that's why when you're starting out, your drawings look maybe really mechanical, but that's not bad, because that will help you. That will help you later, because at one point you're going to not think about it when you're drawing, but your muscle memory remembers all those technical stuff you practice, and then you're starting to get more fluent and more drawing more organic. You're getting more confidence, etc. And it's really funny when that happens, and that happens over a lot of time. And you're starting to develop your own style and so on. And it's really interesting, because that's get also a lot of questions about how to develop your own style, and that is something that grows over time. So here, making this thin neck like this here, and you can again erase these lines a little bit, draw in this nose, making it a little bit silly, funny, like this here. And slowly we can start drawing in some more details. Like this here, let's add this here. Let's make this here. Let's draw in a line here. Eyebrow. And just to make quick lines, not overthink it. Have some fun with it, like you're playing with it. So here. And also a lot of people say, how can you design your own characters? It's basically using all these things I'm showing here, but then using different proportions. Try to make this forehead bigger, or make this small nose small, more pointier, or more. So by playing around with these lines, you get different styles. This line here, and this here, and then this here. Yeah, now we can start inking this drawing. Let's move this here. Let's get a sketch. Let's make this sketch bigger, like this here, and we can start inking it, make it really lighter. So here, this is what you can also do on paper, erasing these lines. Maybe use a blue pencil or something to sketch on it. And now you're taking your fine liner or your brush. You start to draw in these lines. So I don't mind if it's still a little bit sketchy, because that gives it this, this more charming look. Because when you, for example, when you zoom out, that looks a little bit different. I think I could have made it a little bit smoother. It also helps in especially when drawing tablets. So it's already 5%. Let's make it 10%. So the smoothing makes your brushes a little bit smoother. In this video, I don't want to go too much in depth about the brushes. I want to focus on drawing these side profiles. So here, drawing this. This can be a thin line. This as well, but this mouth, I want to be this mouth a little bit of thicker line. Like this here. Maybe erase this little part here. Then we have this line here. So you can see when I'm drawing a little bit faster, get more of these smoother lines, like this here. So, and then here this nose, going down here. And then draw in this part here. And then nice corner or curve here. So here, then adding this eyebrow down here. Line here. Here, and then this here. So, and decide yourself how much of these drawings do you want to follow step by step. Maybe you want to jump in right away with your own drawings. The main thing with drawing is that you just draw a lot of things. So maybe you can use these videos and ebooks as inspiration, or you can use them to get some of what I said, inspiration, or you like to use it to to practice from following all these steps, get a more guided approach. It's also how I learned. I learned first by learning from other artists, by studying their art, trying to imagine what kind of steps did they take, or what was their thought process, etc. So now we've drawn in the lines, and we can start adding colors. So last time I showed how to draw it with a brush, and now I want to use this with this lasso tool, pressing L in Photoshop or selecting it in the toolbar. So here, following these shapes, so you can draw and press Alt to get these signs. So I find this really useful and a quick way of coloring. So here this is going to be hair on top of it. Take this color, add a layer on top. Now let's do the hair like this, going down here, following here, like this, following the shape, going down here, following the shape here as well, going up, following this here, and then following this shape and releasing it. And now we've have the main shape of the hair. And then here. And here. With this shape. This here. And this here. This here. And later we're going to change it a little bit. Let me also show a little bit how I pick these colors. For example, I already have this purple here, but I will show how I adjust these colors in a bit. So now I have this, and I want to make this, give this character some shadow. So I take this soft paintbrush, or use this paint airbrush, slightly different settings. So make this a little bit more saturation, a bit less brightness, and make this a little bit reddish. Yeah, I think that's nice. So I don't like to just make the color gray, so I like to give it some warmth, saturation, make it a little bit reddish. And start shading this here, make this ear a bit reddish here. So first this, and then this brush here. So I'm doing a lot of color picking. So again, I don't want to go too much in depth about painting because that's different ebook. I want to focus here on drawing the heads, but I also wanted to show this a little bit, so maybe you can follow these steps as well to finish your drawing. Shadow here, here. So that's, for now it's fine. Let's do the eye. So make this eye maybe a little bit more yellowish, so it fits with the character's skin color, so it's not sticking out too much. Make this a bit darker and redder. So here, maybe make this part a little bit whiter, maybe this too much. So you can see I'm always playing around a little bit, so maybe it's not really working. So I think this works more nicer. So take this brown color, make it light. It's really funny because the light is coming from the top, but since the lens is transparent, you get light here. And let's do the hair now. So taking this lighter color, make it a little bit yellow, this hair, so we can use some as if the sun is hitting that hair. So the bluish color is hitting her hair like this. And let's do this part, make this light, this bit light. Maybe you can also select this part, press Ctrl U, this lighter like this here. Maybe we can, oh no, we can't do that. But this darker. So here, now you can see what happens when you're not only doing this. You get this dirty color, but when you're moving this a little bit up, you get this more interesting color. So here, maybe something like that there. Let's add some hairlines. So now let's take a different brush, sketch brush, and let's draw in some light hair strains, something like this. Just quickly add some lines like this, following it. Don't try to be a little bit random, that it doesn't feel like it's made by a robot. So something like this, maybe some darker lines here, one here. And let's draw in some freckles. I always draw a lot of freckles. These characters, maybe a bit too much, but I find it always working quite nice. So here, drawing some highlight on his eye, and we've painted this this character. You can also color the line art, pressing this color, selecting this here, making this brush bigger. Use this color and then softly try to find. We take a soft brush. So something like this here. So here, like this, and then we've finished this character. Let's put it in a folder and move to the next one. So here I want to show how to use shapes to design characters, and this can also be great when you are having an art block. So take a rough brush. At the moment, I really like to use this brush. So what I sometimes do is I start with this shape for the head. So the forehead, eyebrow, nose, mouth, chin. So this can be a really fun exercise when you're in an art block. You can use these shapes. So first you can draw a shape. And then you can start drawing in this shape. So make the opacity a bit lower. Then take a sketch brush. Then draw top of it, making this brow. So and then just try to fill drawing in these shapes. So maybe that's a fun exercise. You can use these shapes to draw some heads, or try to draw your own shapes and draw some heads on it. Maybe in your sketchbook or something. Try to fill it. Sometimes you get characters that don't really work, but maybe they can get you out of that art block, or something. Maybe you can also, of course, adding some more stuff. Now I don't. So here maybe changing the skin. So now we're getting this really different character. So here, adding this here, etc. So I would recommend to play around with this. So take a shape like that and try to draw some different heads out of it. So here are some more examples you can use. try to draw the shapes of this head and try to draw a different character out of it. So what I'm also showing here, and maybe this was a little bit clearer here, is that I'm often going out, in, out. So you can get this flow in your character. So try to, and that gets a clear silhouette. So strong silhouette also makes your character clear. So you can almost see what kind of character this already is by simply looking at the silhouette. So for example, this is positive space and that white around it is negative space. So this is positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. Also here this complex versus simple. What do I mean with that? So this is two lines that are parallel. So now we have this line and this line. So this line is complex and this line is simple, and that you get a contrast. So I always try to use that to create interesting characters. Some art styles are used with parallel lines, but I often draw much more in that style with a lot of contrast. Also here in, for example, using with shapes. Now I already talked a bit about this in different courses, but maybe it's good to show again a little bit here. So that here you can see a big shape, small shape, medium shape, small shape, big shape. I'm trying to play around with proportions. So, for example, big nose, small eyes, big chin, small mouth, big mouth, small chin, etc. So try to play around with those kinds of proportions. I would encourage you to play around with it and try to observe your drawings and try to see if you can maybe make the eyes bigger and the nose smaller, or vice versa, or look what happens when you make both the eyes big and the nose big, what happens. And I will be talking more about that in next videos. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Hey everybody, welcome to this video about drawing the head. So in this one, I'm going to show how to draw the 3/4 of the head. So let's start with this one. So as you can see in the previous videos, I started with drawing a ball. So for the cranium, like this. And next, since we're drawing 3/4, we're going to draw this middle line here and down. And now we can start adding in the first jawline and then the second. Once we have this, we want to take off a little bit of the side of the head, because the side of our head is flat. So here, this is flat. And that's also the next step, adding this line here. And then this is more rounded. Also for the eyes, this is also slightly curved. This is going like this. And we can draw this line going down like this here. So then you can erase this line here. Now we can connect this line here to this point. And we've made the basic shape of the head. So why it's useful to draw with these shapes is because it also makes it easier to draw it from different angles. So now let's draw the face on top of this. So let's add the neck first. Something like this. So now we can draw in the eyes like this here. So I always like to think of these eyes are a bit sunk in. It can be really useful to look at a skull, because then you can see how the head is, or how the eye sockets are protected by our eyebrows and etc. But I will also show that a little bit more. But you can see that here these eyes are a little bit sunk in our head, right? Like they're being protected by our skull. And you can feel this when touching your face. You can feel these edges here, and that our eyeballs are protected by these edges. So here, and we can start adding in all these things, all these mouth. Then the ear is on this point. So like this. And you can play around a little bit with the proportions. So don't worry too much about that. So here, skull, and etc. So that is basically the formula I use. And especially this part is really important. And I don't draw it every time, but I like to think about it when drawing. And I will show that in the next examples. So let's start drawing that with this more cartoony character. And you can follow along or take the image from the ebook and use that. So here I'm going to start with the ball like this, and we're going to add these perspective lines. So like this, and also a little bit below here. So here you can see, yeah, I'm approaching it a little bit different than with the previous one. But here, I think this one. And let's draw in the neck like this. Then the shoulders like this here. So this is the basic construction. And this is what I often use when I'm drawing characters. Now let's draw in the nose like this here, and then the mouth. And let's draw in here. I'm now adding a mask. And it helps me with the placements of the eyes and the eyebrows. And you will see me doing that more in the tutorials also later when I will show how to draw eyes. But using this mask, like it's a superhero almost, helps me with the placement of the eyes. So here these eyes are a little bit inwards of that. This, like we've seen to X or something. Now we can start drawing in some details. Let's add this sweater also for now. So shape like this here, and here. Let's see, is this a little bit? Let's draw in some here, like this here. And let's draw in the shoulders here. Let's erase these lines. Let's draw in this here. So like this. And let's draw in the eyebrow. Then this one. Then here. Later I'm going to make the ink. But notice how I start with these basic shapes and start drawing on top of them, just like I did with the side profile and the front view, but now with 3/4. So later I'm going to draw in the line, so don't have to do everything yet. So here, ear parts, hair. So starting with these big shapes, notice how the hair is bigger than the skull. So don't place it straight on top of the skull, but leave some space. So here, and I can actually start with inking the drawing now. So here we have this one. So let's take inking brush. And you can also use any brush you like to use, or just the basic brush. It doesn't matter that much. Here for this, for the original, I even used a regular brush. But now let's start drawing in these lines, like this here, this mount, this line here, so shape, this line here. Let's make this a little bit thicker, these eyelashes, and also note that give some things some nice corners to make it look nice over here. These irises, a thin line here. So these lines are, I often keep very thin. So draw a line here. And let's draw his chin like this here. You don't have to close this. Yeah, you can leave a gap there for the neck. Like this, and then here for the jaw, for the neck. And then let's add that here. Line here. And in the sketch we've been through here, so we know that this line should go here. So when you're not drawing, try to at least imagine where this line is going to be. Go down here, then here, there's this overlapping line. So normally I take a little bit more time for it to get these lines as perfect as I can, but I want to show how, yeah, the steps I do to take this character. So if you want, you can take the image and use that as a reference to draw from. And here, all these shapes here going up. Then here, drawing these lines. Line here, the shoulders. Like this here. And let's draw in these eyelashes. Then here. And then here. So fill this. Using the thin line here. And line here. And just keep working on it. So, and you can see the inking part takes some time. Sometimes I even make still, and I did it here, a sketch before I'm going to ink it. I think you should determine how you want to do this. It's really important that you think about how these lines connect here, because you don't want to have a mismatch with these points. I always like to draw through my shapes. So here, adding these lines a little bit. Here are some strands of hair sticking out. Going like this here. Then we have this line going down here. You can see here I added some more lines. This line here. Then some strands of hair here. Going down. And the hair in this point. So these lines, that you get them a little bit of this S curve, is also really important for the flow. So try to look at those lines as well. So here, let's draw this big shape of hair. Erase this. Then here this line here for the ear. And this inner line. Like this here. So now we've drawn this kit, and you can color that. So we'll show in a future one about how to color it. So, but first I want to show a couple of how I draw these characters. So this one is slightly different. This one has a more cartoony head, so that's why I wanted to show this one as well. So take a sketch brush. And what I would recommend is to first practice drawing these kinds of heads by following along, and then try to draw a head using a different shape. Maybe you can use even a shape like this, or a shape like this, or try to come up with your own shape and draw a character out of it. So what I did here, I started out with a shape. Oh, like this here. And then I'm going to use the shape to draw some construction on top of it, like I did here with these construction shapes. Drawing these guys here, then going up here, and here, and these shapes, and then drawing guides on top of it. Put this a little bit down, connect these shapes. So sometimes I also tweak these shapes. So maybe even in a little bit of a later stage, because when you've drawn this, you don't know yet how it's going to turn out. So it's always okay to play around and to change stuff a little bit. But I would watch out by not doing that too much, because before you know, you're really spending a lot of time in just going back and forth and not making any progress. So maybe especially when you're starting out, just try it and then move on to the next one. So here, drawing all these shapes on top of this base, but try to follow that 3D shape of this. Think as if you're using clay or something to draw one. So here, draw these things here. And the shape here, and adding a shape here, and going here and adding these eyes like this part here. So now let's erase these sketches a little bit, and we can start drawing on top of it. So here let's it a little bit more. So for zooming in, we're using canvas. I would just think about where you want to use it for, and Yeah, don't make it way bigger than it's necessary. That's not really necessary. And a lot of times I don't even zoom in more than this. So watch out with zooming in too much. So here, throwing these shapes just on top. So here these lines, throw in this eyebrow, this here, go down. So a lot of times the nose goes in front of that eye because, well, what I said earlier, the eye is protected by our skull, and that's why it's a bit deeper into our skull. And you can feel that, watch in the mirror or feel your own face and notice how, yeah, how the structure is of our skull. It can also be a really good practice to find a photo of a skull and to draw it. Or if you have a replica or something, use that one to study it. It's really useful, even if you're drawing these cartoon characters. So here's drawing this eyelid, drawing this eyebrow. So like this line here. So how can you train your line art? And that's basically just keep practicing. As you can see here, I'm just using a basic brush, and I would recommend to just practice it. It's, yeah, also drawing from your shoulder really works well. So that's meaning that when you're drawing, watch if you're using a lot of your wrist or your shoulder or maybe even your elbow. But it's best to use a lot of your shoulder because then you have more movement and then you would have more control. But I would also say try out different things and see what yeah, what works best for you. So here, drawing this shape. This line is overlapping this line, like this here. Drawing this color, like this. And closing this gap. Then here, we could add some dots, like this here. And yeah, then it's only the hair. So I've made this basic shape. Now you can draw on top of that basic shape, just adding some shapes following that overall flow. So it's really important to start to think in 3D shapes. So here, adding these details. Erase this a little bit. Strain of hair here, and then we've drawn this this character, and now you can clean up the lines and color it. So let's move on to the next one. Here another shape, and here I'm really trying to tell about how to use yeah, basic shapes to draw your characters. You can also use cubes or circles or squares or a combination of shapes or some abstract shapes here. So I would really recommend, if you have a sketchbook, try to fill page full with different shapes and try to come up with all these different characters. So first not think too much and then draw some random shapes and use those shapes to draw characters. The fun thing is that you would, like if you're watching clouds or something, sometimes you see some kinds of characters or objects in the clouds. And the same things happen when you're looking at shapes and trying to see faces in it. So that would be a great thing to practice when you want to draw original characters or want to get inspiration or get ideas. Maybe you see a cowboy, then you take that idea and you start fleshing it out. So here, let's draw in this cowboy hat. First this circle around the head, and then this shape. Then like this here, and then this head, like this, around the head. And let's add shape here. This going around the neck, like this. Here we have this shape. Like this. So again, you can see how I use these basic shapes basically to start drawing the character. And once I have this, I can start drawing on top of it. So drawing in the nose, like this here, this nostril. To see how I try to, so I don't use only straight shapes, I use these S curves a lot. You can see here that in his nose. To try to be, to have all these different lines, having all these different contrasts in it. So it's really good to practice art you like and try to see what kind of lines do they use, what kind of shapes do they use. And also try to learn the technique and use it for your own characters. That's also basically style, what kind of lines and shapes you're using. And that's the thing, I think when you practice that, you will develop your own style over time. So that's something that grows and it almost goes automatically. The most important thing is to learn how to draw. So here, draw this ear in, this here, and this shape here. Going down here. This goes around here. Try to see what kind of corners I'm using, especially in the final drawing. I took a little bit more time for it. So there's some more, yeah. So this S curve, and then it's going here. Then we have this shape. So here you can see I added a simple ball. In the final drawing, I made it a little bit more angular. I think I wanted to make it also a little bit angular and not too much around to make him a tough cowboy, not too friendly. So that's why it also has these sharp corners. Let's draw this head. Like this here. And of course, here's this line going like this. And then we have this head come here. This point maybe a little bit lower. This shape is going around. So I always try to think about how the shapes are going around. And you could clean this one up. And I wanted to save the cleaning up for the last one. So I want to show how to draw this character. So first, again, we start with the cranium, like this here. This line here. And there's the slight angle here. This one goes a little bit inwards. And then go in here. So like this. Yeah, I think this one would work. Then we can draw in the neck, shoulder, this line here. And we can lightly erase these lines and draw on top of it. So draw this line here. And let's draw in the eyes. These are located somewhere here. Sketching it first. I think it's a little bit too high. First drawing this nose. Somewhere here. This mouth. I think here. I want to have the eye here. Then there. So I always like to start really rough so I can already see if it's working or not. So eyebrow, then this eyebrow here. This line is going down to connect the nose. And we can draw in the ear here. Let's draw in the hair. So there's a big shape going here and then down, pulled down by the gravity. Hair behind the ear and going down like this. Drawing this color like this here. So now we can start drawing in some more details. So first, let's draw in this nose. So you can also start with drawing the eyes or what feels most comfortable with you. So here, drawing these lips. Like this. Just keep it really simple. Later we're going to add more details than these eyes. They're a little bit shut. So maybe something like this. There's this line here. So if you need to change things for the construction, that is fine. Don't stick too much to it. So here, these lines here. And then it's always hard to get your character look at you. So be rough, look at it. What can also work is to rotate your image to see if it's working or not. When you're working on paper, you can put a mirror next to it to check that. And what it does, that mirroring, is that it's almost like you're looking at it with a fresh look. So you can see if the balance is off. Maybe that's, yeah, you made a little mistake, but by flipping it, you somehow have a fresh look at it. So here, these lines. So just keep it really loose and not too tight to figure out if this is what you want. So this hair up and down, this hair going behind the ear. Then we have this hair that's going up and then pulled down, like this here. Then there's also hair here and going back. And then there's this hair that's falling over the shoulder. Back. And then we have the shapes here. And this neck here. And we can erase these lines a little bit. And we can start with the final drawing. So let's take some sketch brush or something. Beat this one. I don't know. find a nice brush. Yeah, I think this one is nice for this one. So move this over here and let's zoom in a little bit. I like to draw on top of the sketch. I don't know, it makes it easier to work with, and I can also, hey, you get that sketchy feeling, but you can also choose to do it on a separate layer and later turn off that layer. So here, draw these lines. So with these young humans, you don't want to draw too much details because then it will yeah, feel too much like an older person. It's maybe you want to draw an older person, so you can add some more lines. I will show that in the next video. This is quite a rough brush, but I think I leave it. Maybe it's fun to use this rough brush for this character. So here I can just change it around it, then up here, and then making this line dark, like this here, this eyelash. And when I'm inking, almost all the lines have the same weight, but when you could go for more line variety, and then I would give the most important shapes the thickest lines. So lines that, for example, show the overall shape of the character, like the outline, or things that are important for the expression, like the eyebrow or the mouth, will have a thicker line. So for example, I could make this line a little bit thicker, like this here. And lines like this here that are less important could be a little bit thinner. So here, going around here, these round eyes. Let's draw in these eyebrows. Going like this here to this point. We have this line here. And we can give this like this here, or eyebrow and the eyelash. And make this, I also want to make this a little bit thicker. Like there's this also some eyelashes. Thinner than the one above, right? So like this. Drawing in that way. So I always like these rough edges of my brushes. You can also choose something, a different brush. I would say just play around with different brushes and see what you like the most. I don't think it's even that important how you draw your lines is more important using those S curves, etc. So here, and then going down for this piece of hair, it was nice long stroke. Then here going up. Most of the time I like going down the most with these hair lines because then you get the most smooth lines. So now let's do this one, and this one is going down to this point. And this one going here. This one going here. This one going here as well. and it goes here at this point. So try to get some interesting corners. And we have this here going down behind the ear. Let's draw in the ear. Let's go here. This earpiece. And to get some inspiration on what to draw, you can go to a fashion website or a clothing website, or maybe from a barber or something. And you can use those photos you see there as inspiration for different hairstyles, clothing. Use a reference. Always people ask me, should I use a reference or should I draw everything out of my head? And I would encourage everyone to use reference. Even if it's the best thing is to use a real life reference. Maybe draw some cartoon version of your sister or brother or your parents or friends. Use that as inspiration for your characters or what to draw. So here, down here, this here, and then, oh, we almost inked this whole character. Here. It's here. So, and now we can start coloring it. So we can do this on different ways, but I think currently I like to just paint in these colors myself. So here, take this skin color. So this is the color wheel I use, and I always use HSB. So I want to have this reddish color, saturation halfway, and a little bit of this blackness in the skin. So here, I'd like to use this rough brush, so you don't get that perfect computer drawing. I like these little slips. Here, fill this. Close these edges like this here, and you can always clean it up a little bit at some spots. Like this here, here. It's a little bit too much. I think you need these to decide. So here, and this a little bit, and add a new layer. Could paint behind, and we need to erase these edges. You could also use a different brush for the eraser. There's some texture on it or something. I would recommend, and it doesn't matter in which program you work, Photoshop or Procreate, but to know how to adjust or create your own brushes. That is really useful. Then you can also tweak them if you find it necessary. Here, erasing this part like this, and let's do then the hair behind. This here, and oops, good. Stay there. So, and determine yourself, how do you want to have it, rough or more cleaned up? So I think the preview I use this a bit more cleaned up. But here I'm going for a little bit more of a rough style. So, like this. Going here. Going here. And then we can start this up. So make these edges dark, like this here. Then on top of that, the eyebrows. Like this. Those eyes. So I don't want to go pure white for the eyes. So there's a slight hint of that reddish brown in those eyes. Gives it a little bit more of a neutral feeling. I'm wondering if you would see this in this video, because it's really subtle. And let's draw in these eyes or the irises like this. This one as well. So I'm working on all these separate layers so you can adjust it more easy later. Lipstick. So this. Let's also use that for the shirt. Oh, let's put it here back. Here. So, like this. So what we can do now is take a soft paintbrush, go back to the layer and start painting in some shadows. Behind this eyes, make this part a little bit darker. Maybe let make it a little bit darker so you guys can hopefully see it in the video. So here, maybe make this part a bit darker under the nose, under the lips, and then here, of course, under the chin, on the neck. So here, make this dark, and let's do those eyes. So here's the light is coming from the top left corner. Let's make those highlights here. A little bit lighter, like this here. Let's keep some blush there, a bit reddish. Just a little bit. Let's make this here, the inside of the ear darker, soft brush. And maybe make some spots a little bit lighter. So, maybe on the nose, maybe here. And then we can move on to the hair. Make some spots a bit darker, like this. So let's turn this icon. If you click this icon, you can paint within the shape. So it should be useful. This here. It's dark. It's dark. Here. And make this lighter. So this is basically how I paint these characters. And then you can also choose to make it cleaned up or keep it a bit rough. It depends where you want to use it for. So sometimes when I work for a client, I need to make a couple of quick sketches. I do it like this. And if it's for a portfolio or more, or when it really need to be polished up, I do it more like that last one. And it's basically, yeah, using different brushes, clean it up a little bit more. But the technique is, yeah, almost the same how I work. So let's zoom out. This one here. And this is basically how I draw 3/4 view characters. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks. Hey, welcome to the next video about drawing heads. And let's start focusing on eyes a little bit first. So let me move this to the side and let's draw some eyes here. So the head isn't completely flat. It has a slight curve to it and also horizontal. So not straight like this, but also always give it a little bit of this curve here. So once you have this, this cross, you can start drawing the eyes on top of it. So this is a really cartoony eyes, but most of the time I do start with something like this first. And can you see how this curves along this line? So try to think about that when drawing eyes on the face, that you draw following that surface of the eye. So we can also draw in the eyebrows. What can also help is to think about a mask when you're drawing eyes. So like this here. So what I also do when I draw an head, so for example, if we have this ball, and then this jaw here, and then we're going to draw the eyes here. So what I also like to think about is that you take out these cupcakes out of these this head shape, and that the eyeballs are inside these cupcakes a little bit. So if you look in a mirror, you can see how our eyes are protected by our eye sockets, so that you can feel these hard edges and that our eyes are a little bit inwards. Let's move this. Oh, let's delete this layer and continue with this one. So when we have this mask, you can draw on the eyebrows on top of this line here. And once you have this, we can start adding the eyelashes like this here. So I always really like it that it's thick on one side and thinner on the other side. Also here, let's make it here a bit thick, get some thickness, and the same here, like this, and here. So when you start with just balls for the eyes, it makes it way easier to draw them. So like this. So here, see how I use this this mask for them. So, and if you need something to practice with, you can use these eyes. You can play around with them. Maybe drawing the eye from the side like this here. Or let's do this one. So here, you start with a line like this, then a line like this. Note how this line is overlapping that other line. Here. And so with realistically, if we draw the eye from the side, you would have your iris here with a hole inside it, and then this is the lens. But when I'm drawing cartoon characters, I like to draw the lens of pupil on top of it and the iris like this, because it's more simpler. This is a little bit too complex for the types of characters I like to draw. But when you draw more realistically, this is more accurate. Yeah, of course, you can look up photos of the internet on that, or look at animation shows how they do how they do that. So yeah, of course, there's no wrong or right. Everyone can do it on their own way. So here, draw this S shape, this eyelash, and here this eye, this line. A lot of times you see this line here, and etc. So maybe we can also show here some of these masks. Let me pick one. Yeah. So let's start first drawing this eye mask. So here, and something like this. So now we can draw in those eyeballs, and you can see there, here it's being pushed up as well, here even more, and this line here, and then this line here. This eyebrow is being pushed down, so like this. So here this eye is looking up, like this here. And this is how I quickly draw eyes. But you have also seen me doing it in other videos as well. But I wanted to emphasize how that mask is helping me, and also that idea of the cupcakes, that our eyes are a little bit inwards our head. So let's look at noses. So yeah, you must know now that I always like to draw objects with shapes, and we can also draw the nose with shapes. So the most regular nose we can draw is this that one below, and then I just start with you can start with drawing a cube like this here. So like almost everything you can draw with the cube. And it's really useful to think in these kinds of shapes and draw a ball below it, or an ellipse. You can see it. So we can draw these perspective guides to get this sense of depth in it. The even line here. So once we have this, we can deform these shapes a little bit, like this. So it does help to first think in these simple shapes and then deform them a little bit. Give these things a little bit of some corners like this, and we have a base for the nose. So now we can draw on top of it like this, and we can draw here, and then you have these main shapes, and you can leave it like that. In some cartoon styles this is more than enough. If you want to make it a little bit more realistic, you can continue with it. Here, drawing this here, showing a little bit of that other nose edge or wing, and then shaping this a little bit, and then here and here a line. So that's how I draw the most basic brush, basic nose. But we can also use shapes that to draw the nose. So maybe start with drawing a cube, and inside this this cube going to draw the nose. So it's not a perfect cube, but it's not even a problem. So it's just to give us some idea in kind of space we're going to draw the nose. So here, and just going down here. So basically this is a cube like here with this shape going like this here, but then we're adding a shape here. Like this here. So it's not that I always draw all these noses like this, but it's really good to practice it first like this, because when I'm drawing things, I do think this way. So it trains you to think in shapes and in 3D, and that's really useful. So especially when you're starting out, I would recommend to really practice drawing objects like this. So here we have then the nose up, and then you see this other nose wing part, and yeah, we can add these perspective lines, guides, so like this, to get an idea how everything is 3D, and especially when you want to paint something, that can be really useful. So now we can start drawing these shapes like this. So going here, there's no shape here. And then of course you have to decide where you're going to add the lines and where not. It depends a bit on how realistic you want to go, or how far zoomed in or out you are, etc. So with these 3 shapes, you can create an endless way of possibilities. Say, for example, here squashed. So basically is that when you have these 3 shapes, I show it here a little bit. It's especially useful when you're, for example, of course, when you're working in 3D or something. But also here. So when we have this shape, we can also squash it like this, and then maybe make this piece more narrow, and even stretch this piece even more. Let's make it really insane one. So here you can see how you can play around with these shapes to make all these kinds of weird noses. That's what I wanted to show here a little bit. And that's also with other objects of that. It's not only with the nose, but also with with other things. So here, then we can draw this big nose here, and then here this line here, and then a line here, going back here. So yeah, maybe this is too insane, but it's good to experiment with it. You can also make it really long, and then you get a bit of a nose like that. So I would recommend try to come up with all these kinds of different noses. Here I already made a bunch of them. You can take these and try to play around with those shapes to create your own noses. So for example, you see this shape here, right? Then you have this shape here. Try to see if you can recognize all those different shapes, and then try to make different versions of them. We can also make this really long, and like this, or we can even make it even shorter that you get a nose like this, right? So see how much variety you can get with all those three shapes. So I would recommend try to play around and get take your sketchbook and fill a whole page with noses. So let's talk a bit about aging characters. So when we grow, we start with a really round head. And when we get older, the head becomes a little bit longer and longer, and also a bit more pointier. So everything is really round here. But when we get older, everything gets a bit more pointier. I will show some more about it next. But first, yeah, what you can do, you can take these heads and draw an aging character. Maybe a fun exercise is to draw yourself in different ages. So here, when we get even more older, first we get a really long head. This is of course generalized and simplification, but it does work quite very well. So when you go from middle age to a little bit older, you get a bit more, the skin becomes to hang a bit more. It's more difficult to stay thin. You get a little bit fatter. And then, yeah, you lose hair and you get even, more skin. And in the end, it sometimes it even looks like our head starts to, like we're always shrinking, like we're being pulled by gravity down. So everything gets a little bit wider. So, and I'll show that even more in a little bit. Yeah, you can also see that here on the head. So if we look at this this face here, you can see here this shape, this T shape, and this works really well. You can also use it to design all these different characters. But when we get older, this shapes gets longer. So like I'm showing here. And I made an example of that with this one. So note how this T shape, maybe I can show that here, something like this here. So let's make this bigger. See how this is something like this here. See how this T shape changes when we get older. So it starts like something like this. And we move it to here, and then you notice that it gets longer. Even more longer. So like this to even more longer. So it's like the shape is being stretched up. It's just a simple tool to help you remind it a little bit, but you can play around with it, and it's always really fun to use this T shape to to draw some heads, for example. You can use this T shape also to draw all these kinds of different heads. So if you this doesn't have to be straight, because you can also use a shape like this here. Sometimes it also does work better without the mouth. Let's draw a shape like this now. So here we have the nose. then these eyes here. So you can use this T shape to draw all kinds of different heads. I've shown it once before, but it's also useful to draw aging characters. So let's move on to this baby. So yeah, let's draw this baby head. So the shape, it's basically just a ball. And then of course with a jawline. So it makes really round. So in some cartoon styles, you can also almost leave it away for baby. So you got just this ball for the head. And on top of this, we can add this perspective guide also here. And with babies, they most of the time they have this tiny nose, small mouth, but these big eyes. So something like this, and then these thin eyebrows, because of course they don't have that much hair yet. And also a big, yeah, that big forehead, but I want to have this chin a little bit smaller, so you get this cute character. Then we draw this ear. It's also really small. And older people do have really big ears and stuff. I won't talk about that yet, but babies often have these small ears. And a big adorable eyes also really help. Small lips to make it cute. And also the hair, really thin hair. So something like this. So you can also choose to even draw less hair, but I would not do much more hair than this, or it's important for the story, then it's different. But generally speaking, the hair of a baby is really thin. So this, can erase these lines, and we can start drawing on top. So here, remember with these eyelashes, that you can make this side a little bit thicker. Like this here. And then we have these eyes here, and then we can draw a line here. Draw some thin lines. And draw some nose, like this. These little wrinkles. Sometimes depends a little bit on the style. You can leave them out, those little lines. And draw this here, this here. So let's draw in these eyelashes. Let's make this a little bit thick here. And then we have these irises like this. And let's draw in the head shape. Like this here. And then here. So think of that cute baby fat. So like that. All these round shapes. I don't know, maybe that's biology or something. Yeah, we find that cute and appealing. So here, use these round, cute shapes. Also in the hair, use these round shapes, etc. So that is basically how I draw babies and young children, using a lot of round shapes, big eyes. And go ahead, try to make your own version. So here, let's look at this kit. So these shapes are also really round. So I think I already also drew enough middle-aged people. And there you can see everything's a little bit longer, a bit sharper, but with kids, everything is a little bit more, cute and rounded. So here, draw the shape here, and let's make this even a little bit smaller, more space to draw. This here, these two balls makes also really cute. Also, at this age, oftentimes the kids, they can choose their clothing and their hairstyle, but they're still really influenced by the parents. A lot of times when they got more in puberty, they start to develop their own taste and being more spoke out. But here they still have something of that really cute, young style. So here we draw in these shapes rough. So I'm now drawing a little bit quick, and I'm also making some mistakes, like this forehead. The example is a little bit higher, but I could also do it, I think, like this. It will become a little bit of a different character, but it's also no problem. So here you can see a little bit how I usually try to search for my character. Sometimes I just quickly draw in these sketch like this here, and then I start drawing the final drawing to get an quick idea if things work, and then I can always tweak stuff. So I think this one will look a little bit different than the example. It's also no problem. Then you can also see a little bit how I fix, play around with stuff. I think it's going to work here. But sometimes when you're finishing a drawing, you start to notice, oh, this doesn't work as I had in mind. And that's no big deal, because you can easily erase it and change stuff. So here, draw this for the hair. So I do notice that I do come a little bit space too short here. So on this turtleneck, and then I think this shape's coming from here. So let's move these balls a little bit like this here, and let's fill in these shapes like this. If you're going to study these characters, I would suggest to use these images from the ebook. So here we're going to really old, or are they really old? They're starting to get old. Maybe we can take this character and try to make it really old. Let's see if it works. So we start with this basic shape I also talked about earlier. And when we get older, just a bit of an exaggeration to say everything shrinks. But when we're drawing, we can say that everything shrinks except the nose and the ears. So those are really out of proportions. Sometimes the eyes seem to be really small. Lots of really big eyebrows. See sometimes, and also there's also not that much hair, and the head starts to hang, because their whole body starts to hang. So like this here, and then let's start with this sketch here and start drawing in some light. So let's make this, use a bit of that expression there. Maybe draw in the eyes here. Maybe it works better if I think that works better. There these eyelashes. So drawing these eyes. Like this here. Then here. Lots of wrinkles with older people in this big nose. That makes that makes this character older than this one. That big nose. And then of course all these wrinkles here. Mouth. Maybe you can draw lines around the mouth also works. We can give him a chin like this. So this, yeah, I think this makes it really old. And then these hanging cheeks also makes it old. And then these scruffy eyebrows like this. Then here some wrinkles. And then here we have this head going here. And then this big ear like this is really starting to hang. Think about it, that everything gets pulled down by gravity. So here, then we have this hair. So like this, and this neck, like this here. So yeah, this is a little bit how I would draw old characters. So lots of wrinkles, of course, and the skin is getting to hang. These chins that really get big or with these weird shapes, but also really big noses and ears, and scruffy eyebrows also help. And of course, then oftentimes they're bald and gray hair. So that's how I draw old characters. So yeah, this was the last video. Let's summarize it a little bit with this this drawing. So here you can see it with this shape. So this is I think a girl from, or a woman from the age 25 or something. Yeah, maybe a little bit younger or older. But here you can see this pointy shape. And when you want to draw her younger, you can make it rounder. And it's funny, you can also use this round shape with an older person. That's always the thing with these rules. You can always break them. So always start with these basic shapes, right? And then use these perspective lines to get a sense of where you want to place everything. So this nose goes under it, then this mouth. So then we can draw in the eyes. So again, using that eye mask. So here I'm not going to make the eyes too sunken in the head, because this is a little bit stylized. These eyeballs. And when you have these shapes, also for the hair, use these big shapes first to draw everything like this. And when this character is a little bit too hard, try it out first with a more simple character. It's also, when you're starting out to drawing, I would almost recommend to start out with cartoony characters, because we're so trained to see human heads. When there's something wrong or off, we notice that right away. So that makes it really hard to draw correctly. But here in this stage you can be rough, but I would recommend to use these big shapes and slowly start adding in more and more details. Here's eyelashes. So here also remember that in these examples I clean them up a little bit. Usually I draw more rough. maybe even more often than I'm doing here. So here, draw these lines here. How do I want to have this hair? Oh, there's also this hair here in front of it. There's this line here, and here. So yeah, try to play around. Another thing you can do is when you've made this drawing, try to flip it to see if it's working or not. When you're working on paper, you can use a mirror to flip and check your character. So what I would recommend is for practicing drawing heads, it's really great to use reference, use photos. I think it's even great to use photos from people you know or something. Maybe that's a fun thing you can start drawing, practicing. Try to draw people you know using their photos and using the techniques I've shown in these videos. And yeah, it's not really that you have to get close on how they look, but that you try to learn how to draw all these different shapes and characters. So I would just advise you to try to draw a lot. That's also how I learned to draw it. And for example, it's really fine to use my art and study from it, and maybe make variations on it. And the more you practice, the more you will develop your own style. But the main thing I would say is first practice from artists you like, use these breakdowns I'm showing, and after that try to make variations of it and use reference and use photos and try to draw those characters and try to find their likeness in personality and etc. But it's totally, watch out for trying to avoid using a reference. There's nothing wrong with using a reference, and as long as you can see you've copied someone or something. You want to make it your own, but that's why I also would say use photos as a reference, because then you would make your own version. And by studying drawings like I do here, you can see with the nose, I started to draw nose one way, but then you can change the proportions of the nose to get completely different versions. And you can also do that with this girl. Maybe I can hope I can show that really quickly. For example, if we make this shape, this head shape really long, and this thin and this neck not that long, so like this here, and we just follow the same steps, but maybe make this nose really long, right, like this here, and then this make this lip really thick, and this is a thin lip, something like this, and then we have more long eye, something like this here. So it's now really not working that great, but you start to get a really different head, right? But we're still using the same shapes. A lot of times when I'm starting to develop a character, sometimes my sketches look like this because I'm not trying to make it really appealing yet, but I try to find something else. So now I can start drawing on top of it and trying to make it work a little bit better. So here, and I just start to work on it. But what I wanted to tell with this one is that you can use these proportions and try to play around with them to make your own version. And then you can come up with all your own different characters. So what I would suggest is, study all these drawings a lot until you really know the techniques. And after that, you can try to make your own versions. So I hope you like the videos, and I would say, yeah, go practice and study a lot with the ebook. Have fun. And also remember, it takes a long time to learn to draw. So don't feel discouraged when you don't see a lot of progress. You will see progress if you keep doing it over a longer time. So have fun, practice a lot, and enjoy the ride. Thanks.